Hey guys, what's up? In this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with those rod ends that I posted on social media. I had a couple of bent rod ends after the C10 Nats. So I just want to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. A lot of people think that, because it's a product that I purchased off the shelf, so to speak, I should be going back to No Limit and looking for stuff from them. But the reality is that I built a custom truck, and all the setup is my responsibility. So even though they assembled it, there's no instructions provided, etc., etc. That doesn't matter. It's in the end, it's my responsibility to make sure that everything is set up correctly. So I had a miss, and that's what I'm going to show you guys that I missed on. Part of it is, because there is no setup, I didn't pay as close of attention to the bottom end of the rod link connected to the bar arm when I should have. So yeah, let's just get into it and let's talk about what's going on there, because some of you guys may or may not have this on your setup as well. And again, it's your responsibility to make sure that it's set up correctly. So let's talk a little bit about, so I showed you guys a picture of these bent rod arms that I had after coming back from the C10 Nats. So this guy right here, he's bent quite a bit. This guy was installed right here. So what I've done is, before I buy new rod ends, I wanted to see what was going on. So this is actually the top end from the other side of the truck to just make one good straight link. So the way it's set up now is it's in the way that it came configured, and it looks okay. This is a little longer than it was, so this arm is down a little bit. That's because I'll show you what I'm doing with this setup here in a little bit, but I was going to run it through the default setup. So the arm is installed in the standard spot, and one thing I do, just as a little tip, is with these 3-piece bars, I put a little Sharpie mark on there. These things, when you get these things clocked, you want to be able to take them on and off and make sure when you put it back on, you have it phased with the other side. So just put a little match mark on there, lining up a spline with a mark on the arm. That way you ensure that you get the arm back in the same spot when you took it off. That's just a little tip. But anyway, so what we're going to go ahead and do now is run this thing up. So it's down at full droop right now. I'm going to run it up to ride height, and what we're going to look at is we're going to look at these angles. And so specifically, we're looking at the rod angle relative to what it's bolted through. You can see here at the full droop, there's quite a bit of angle in this thing. It's almost maxed out. If we get back over on this side, you can see that it's actually touching the A-arm with the body of the rod arm. That's okay at a full max condition. That's not a big deal. The rod, it still has a little bit of movement, but that's how you can generally tell as you start getting constrained in the movement of the rod end. So let's go ahead and put this thing up at ride height. I've got the spring off of the coil over here, so I just got a bottle jack, and we'll go ahead and set it up to ride height. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go up to the height where it was. Front end was drooping a little bit. I might be out of bottle jack there. Yep, that's about the max bottle jack I got. That's all right. So we're pretty close. So let's take a look at things here. Alright, so sitting up at ride height, I'm going to show you guys what I missed. It's probably mainly on me. It was a setup item that I missed, which resulted in the bent bottom rod end, but whatever. So the top rod end looks like it's in okay shape. It's got a little bit of angle on it, but it's actually coming down pretty straight. What I missed is right there. You guys can see that. Pull my brake line up out of the way. That angle is pretty extreme for that rod. And and this is at ride height, guys. So as this is what's happening is, as the suspension goes up, this guy goes up as well, but when it goes up, because it's a flat curved bar, this rotates as it goes up. So as we go through a bump and we get compression in the suspension, this is going to just let me see if I can do this with my finger. So this point is going to come out, so it's going to continue to go through an arc. You can visualize that this is going through an arc as it goes up. So we've got another 2 inches in suspension travel, basically. I mean, you can see there's a couple inches of travel left in the suspension. The shock is pretty close to sweet spot, so it's pretty close to sitting in the center. So, you know, as you start rolling around and this thing starts rolling and the body starts rolling, you can imagine there's some forces put on there. The other thing that's not quite right with this link at this angle is that this is supposed to be what's called a two-force member, and two-force members are meant to only have tension or compression in them, not any sort of side loading. So that's why you put the rod ends on there. With the rod end bound up, what happens now is that this thing is now trying to support additional loads. So instead of just supporting a tension compression load along its axis, it's now trying to react a bending moment, or something that's trying to bend the rod. And actually, yeah, that's what happened, right? Is it bent the rod. So if we put that guy in there, if you think about it, you know, as that thing goes up and through the angle, it just winds up bending that rod. So there's actually a really simple solution. It may require some slightly different rod ends, but let me show you guys what that is. It's pretty simple. That squeaking that you're hearing is the roll bar rotating in the Delrin bushing. Alright, so what I did was I just dropped it down so I can get in here a little bit. So hopefully this guy's unloaded. Alright, so it's as simple as going to the other side of the bar. So we get a little bit at this full droop. We get a little bit of rod end angle going on in here, but it's not too bad, because we know that we're going to actually go the other way once we put this thing back up in the air. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see, I think that's pretty close to ride height. Get in there and check. Pretty close. Alright. I actually do plan to raise the ride height just a touch when I go back together. So let's take a look at this setup. I'll show you guys the difference here. Alright, so right off the bat, you may notice that the link is now in a much better position at the ride height. It's actually, I can move these rod ends around. This one's getting pretty close to being bound up. If I push the bolt in there, the top one would be pretty bound up, so we'll have to take a look at that and see if there's any rod ends that might be able to help with that. And then the bottom one is in pretty good shape. So it's actually looking pretty good in terms of its setup. So the other thing you'd want to do is you'd want to go up and up to full compression. Let's see how high the bottle jack can go. I made a little adjustment. Alright, so it didn't quite get there. Still got a little bit left, but you can see we are starting to bind up a little bit. You know, as this guy keeps coming up, it keeps rotating. You know, one of the things we can do to help alleviate that is we can increase the length of the link, which is one of the things that I did. But you can't increase that too much. So up here at bump, we've got plenty of room between the tie rod and the rod end. But if we drop this guy down, so let's do that. So let's let the jack out. So as we get back down here to full rebound, we're starting to get close to the tie rod end. So that's the only thing you got to keep in mind when you're adjusting these link lengths. So I could, in theory, make this link a little longer and get this a little closer to the tie rod down here at the full bottom end, and we might be able to gain something. So let's give that a whirl and see what happens. Okay, so made the link a little bit longer, probably about a ½ inch longer. I lengthened out about a quarter and then about another quarter down here. These are both right hand thread rod ends, so I can't just spin the bar in place. That's something I may look at changing in the future, but you generally don't adjust these lengths, especially on a street car. Once you get these things fixed, you don't mess with them very often, so it's not a big deal having double right hand threads on these guys. So basically what that did was it pushed the bar arm down a little bit, which is what we wanted. We're closer to the tie rod now, which is okay. I mean, the suspension is not going to be down here very often, but you can never say never, because it will wind up down here. So we're pretty close to binding up on this end down here, and then pretty good up there. So now basically let's take it back up and see what that looks like. Alright, that's the max of the jack, and we're looking a little better. Still bound up here on the top, so I didn't figure that would help that. That's definitely going to need a different rod end, which probably means I'm going to need a different bolt, just a longer bolt. They make rod ends that can get a little bit more articulation in them. And then down here, same deal. We're starting to get bound up. I don't have it fully tightened. Putting these little lock washers in here is a trick that does help you get a little bit more range out of the rod end articulation. So I don't think that's going to help up on the top though. So not too bad. Again, it's not full compression. Still got a little ways to go, but yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. So one thing I was going to try and do is see if I can show you guys how that thing travels as it goes down. So let's give that a whirl. Alright, so hopefully you guys got an idea of what's going on there and what I'm going to do. I'm got a couple of rod ends that I'm looking at picking up. I'm going to get those here in the next, hopefully this week, and see if I can get that stuff installed and check that out, see if it's doing any better. So till then, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you next time.